At the Concordia 2024 summit in New York City, global leaders, innovators, and policymakers have come together to tackle the theme Navigating a New Era. Over the three-day event, critical discussions focused on geopolitical shifts, climate change, artificial intelligence, and economic stability.
We're in Manhattan. The great pilgrimage has begun. World leaders are here, CEOs, journalists, lots of different people from across the world. Talk to me about why you are in New York this week.
I'm here because major events are taking place globally, where we see global conflict, socio-demographic changes, but as well tremendous innovation that we want to see how it will impact our lives, and we want it to be for good. And in movement health, we are sure that great examples that are taking place in Africa, in places like Ghana, South Africa, or Algeria, can extend health span so that it may become the new lifespan. We want to live longer, yes, but we want to live healthier as well. We have been working with the National Pharmaceutical Council in Ghana in order to understand how, if you arrive to a pharmacy and you have a heart condition, how you can get in the faster way the treatment that you need. Ghana has an impressive way of connecting the pharmacies with the hospitals, and they already did great success and strides in making sure that whenever you need a specific medicine, you can know exactly in which pharmacy you can get it, which is something that not even Singapore, as of now, is having it. So based on that capacity, we started understanding what else could be done in order to continue improving care for people based on what was already done. And the first step is with heart conditions, but we are thrilled to extend this as well to diabetes, and as well to knowing earlier if you have a condition that can be treated in the cancer space. And it's had been exciting what has been going on, because there are other countries like Nigeria that as well have been listening and hearing what's going on in Ghana. And now we are in conversations to see great experiences that can have global impact, born and thought with African experience.
I had a really engaging discussion with you behind the scenes, talking about Africa. You mentioned the fact that we can't be dictated to no more, although it still kind of feels like we are. Talk to me about what's happening in Manhattan this week, why you are at Concordia today, and what success would look like for Africa at the end of this week.
Wow, that is a tall order. I will say that what drew me to Climate Week this year, as opposed to years before, is I think we're at a critical point in our development where we need to decide where the growth poles should be. As much as we work with development aid agencies, banks, and DFIs from the West, and they provide a lot of the capital, I think they've done a better job understanding what's happening on the ground. But if governments cannot also decide for their people what their strengths are, what are the resources in the country that need to be developed, and actually think of value chains. Oftentimes we see interventions, whether it's CSR or it's charitable or philanthropic, here solving this one problem, whether it's sanitary napkins or it is loans to women. What are the metrics that we're measuring to say, why aren't those sanitary napkins now being produced in Africa with sustainable materials in Africa? And how do we make sure we scale that? How do we also make sure that we're scaling the opportunity for people to work more cooperatively together and not just a random shop here and a random shop here and a random shop this? So I think, right now we're calling this a funding winter. We're seeing across VC and PE, funds are harder to raise, exits are harder to come by. I think it's a matter of markets as well. I think in Africa, we've seen the advent of venture capital in the last 15 years, and we see general partners raising money. We don't necessarily see the resulting track record for exits, because we need to start talking about consolidation. Is there an opportunity to roll up companies, to vertically or horizontally integrate them, opportunistic mergers and acquisitions, and even in some cases, distress buying? Is there IP or is there a product that is worthwhile, but maybe the business model or the way the company is structured isn't the way it is? So I think we need to kind of think outside of traditional models. We tend to raise money based off of a Western model, 10-year fund with an additional 2 years. We do 2% management fee, 20% carry. Why aren't we being bold enough to push and say we need longer lead times in Africa for innovation to take hold, for companies to grow organically and maybe even inorganically? And I think so if we don't in 2024 now say we're almost a quarter into this century, say that coming to meetings like this, we now are creating, whether it's the market rules, the regulation, or the policy that actually allows for these markets to grow. When are we going to make that decision? And I think that we're starting to see in the likes of Nigeria, they have their own sovereign wealth fund. There's work by a gentleman named Solomon Quaynor at the African Development Bank trying to develop and get pension funds and sovereign wealth funds to invest in their own countries and their own regions. I think when we're able to do that in concert with money that's coming from abroad, and also developing talent locally and having boots on the ground and making sure the interventions are dynamic and getting feedback from the market, I think that's when we start to shift things.
One of the challenges that we face is a lot of the development organizations, look at recruiting people, but oftentimes they are recruiting entry-level people who really don't have that much knowledge or expertise in development. So getting somebody who's already spent a whole year in a community that's not their own working on development is something that's going to help us a lot in terms of just owning this development agenda that we seek to do. Why are we at Manhattan this week is partly because everybody is here, and we think a lot of the decisions are being made, a lot of the global policy conversations are happening at this point, and this is really the right place for us to make our voice heard and say, look, we have examples of what we've seen is working there, and that's what we really need to do.